Well, good evening, everybody. He is Joe Rao.
And he is Joe Cioffi.
And we're the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
Joe and Joe Weather Show.
That's right. And another day, Joe, another day. A lot of severe weather going on. But in particular, today is the 8th anniversary of the... you all right?
I'm fine.
Okay. No Heimlich on the air here.
No.
You sure? Take a breath. Okay.
Hello, everybody. It'll clear
pass?
up. It'll clear up.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Right.
Well, if I feel bad, I'll just step out and get a drink of water.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that you probably have woken everybody up. So, all right, come on, serious time. Today, 8th anniversary, Joe, of the tornado in Joplin, Missouri. And I was reading up about this beforehand. 158 people lost their lives, with an additional 3 people that died indirectly because of it. 1,150 injured. $2.8 billion. It was the deadliest tornado to strike the United States since the 1947 Glazer-Higgins-Woodward tornadoes, which I have to look up to see what that was, and the 7th deadliest, and it ranks as the costliest single tornado in U.S. history. $2.8 billion in damage.
Incredible. More damage done with this tornado than in some hurricanes.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
And I bring it up because right now, and I'm going to bring up the Joplin, Missouri. Actually, they just came out. They had a tornado warning up for Joplin, with a tornado actually confirmed on the ground. It looks like they may have taken them out of the warning at this point. But this one was a radar confirmed tornado, and then I did see there was from an earlier one saying that a large tornado was actually on the ground in Joplin.
Wow! So
that is obviously that's not a good thing. We don't want to see that sort of stuff happen at all. But this is the risk with regards to the severe weather, which has been so active these last. Almost 2 weeks that we've been dealing with this.
And now we have to deal with possibly severe weather in our own right come tomorrow mid to late afternoon into tomorrow evening, believe it or not.
Correct. So let me just really fast, we'll just jump to, this is the Joplin radar. I'm going to put the loop on. Just give me 1 second. There we go. It's loading. And let's bring it up so the folks can see here. And the red boxes are actual tornado warnings, and the yellow boxes are all severe thunderstorm warnings. So obviously we have a very, very busy radar, to say the least. And a lot of intense cells in there. I could see the one where the tornado, that box on not the ones that are on the lower left, but just to the east of there. That's where Joplin, Missouri is. So you can see right over Joplin you had the tornado warning up with a very, very strong cell that's moving on through right now.
You can imagine, even 8 years after the fact, and especially since today is the anniversary day, that not a few people in that area are probably still shell shocked from what happened back in 2011.
Oh yeah, and let me just remind everybody right now, in case you're watching this on a replay later during the overnight or even tomorrow morning, it is 9:28 Eastern Time on Wednesday night. So be sure, if you've got severe weather threatening your area and you're watching this, all of this is dated. You want to make sure you get the latest information by going to weather.gov to your local National Weather Service office page. Here's the thunderstorm activity. Unlike yesterday, Joe, it's not. Yesterday we had that big wrapped up cyclone moving up through the western plains, that sort of classic comma signature on the radar. It's a little different today. We've got frontal boundaries that are setting up. That old low is now way up in northern Minnesota. That's going to hook up with the cold front and push that through here for our area tomorrow. Right. So I've got WPC's risk area up for tomorrow. There it is. And maybe make sure they haven't updated it, because sometimes they do update it during the day, and it looks like we've got the latest one. But slight to enhanced risk. The only thing I will say is that from this morning, Mr. Rayo, they actually shifted the areas a little bit to the west
Right.
from earlier, and the enhanced area a little bit further to the south.
Right. And it's not often that you see enhanced. Although, you know, Joe, the new, and I'm calling this the new system, it's been around now since what, 2016 or 2017. I'm still thinking about the old days, slight, moderate, and high.
Right.
But it is not often that you do see their enhanced activity or projection for enhanced activity so close to the tri-state metropolitan area.
Yeah, now for us, for sure. By the way, in the Joplin, Missouri in 2011, they had a slight risk, but that was the old criteria.
Right.
So a slight risk, the percentages might be different. The slight risk now is a 15% chance of severe weather, and enhanced risk, I believe, if I remember correctly, is 30.
Right.
So I don't remember what the numbers were exactly, but the bottom line is I've been kind of telling people that it's difficult when you have models sort of all over the place. It's exactly where these thunderstorms are going to form tomorrow, but I would just assume that if you're in or near any of this, the general area of risk, assume that there might be some strong thunderstorms that could come through later tomorrow afternoon. And the other thing I would say is, coastal New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, is there going to be a south wind tomorrow? Because if there's a south wind all day, temperatures are going to be probably not getting much out of the low and mid 60s. Bit of a marine influence. It might cause the storms to weaken as they move across to the coastal areas.
Big player in this, obviously, is going to be the sun. We know that there'll probably be a couple of showers first thing in the morning tomorrow. And then, actually, from about late morning into the early mid-afternoon, not much of anything is going to happen. Then it will just be a matter of watching and waiting and seeing whether or not the clouds can break. And if we get any decent amount of sunshine tomorrow, then get ready, because I think we may be in for some big problems here later in the afternoon. The more the sun is out, the more the atmosphere will boil up and become more and more unstable, the cold front approaching from the west. And that could mean the difference also, Joe, between a severe thunderstorm watch being issued versus, let's say, possibly even a tornado watch being issued for later tomorrow. In any case, I think we are going to be in line for some active weather later tomorrow and tomorrow evening.
All right, so let's look at the HRRR model, because that model actually has been doing fairly well with these thunderstorm situations lately. And tomorrow morning is the warm front that comes through, and there are a couple of downpours that are indicated around 6, 7, 8 a.m. moving northwest to southeast. It's always possible that there could even be an embedded, isolated thunderstorm. Sometimes you do get them when the warmer air is trying to come in.
Right.
Now, later tomorrow afternoon, well, there's two things one thing I do want to say. Sometimes with the warm fronts, if they're a little too active and you don't get enough of that daytime heating in between,
right,
oftentimes they zap everything out of the atmosphere,
right,
and you're just kind of sitting there waiting, and when the front comes, gets close enough, not much happens. So you have to watch for that possibility. And here's this is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Some strong cells in upstate New York, some scattered cells around New Jersey, and then the line gets a little stronger going into tomorrow evening. It looks like it wants to actually make the stronger part of the line move over the coastal areas of southern New England, as opposed to being more inland and coming in across Pennsylvania and south, and on another line down in Maryland. I don't know. I'm not so sure whether it's going to work out with this kind of look.
You just simply have to say broad brush this for now and tell everybody to just get ready and be on the alert that mid to late afternoon to early evening tomorrow. I've been saying on air, 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock is the best time frame to expect some active convection. It may come a little earlier, it may stay a little later, but that's the time frame to watch. And then after 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow, it should be pretty well past us. And then we open the door for a nice, fresh, dry northwesterly wind and what looks to be a very nice end of the week on Friday.
The HRRR does provide a simulated satellite, which, by the way, these maps are always available to everybody on tropicaltidbits.com. And if you haven't gone to this site and you're into weather, just play around with it. There's just so much here that Levi Cowan, who runs the site, has put together. It's just terrific. But this is the simulated satellite You can see some of the higher cloud tops that come through tomorrow morning with the warm front. And then it kind of looks like most of the high level stuff is further north, and you got this patchy stuff down in Delaware and Maryland, which we saw reflected on the radar.
Right.
It almost looks like it's more organized after it passes offshore.
Yeah.
Which is entirely possible. This is at 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, by the way. These are not radar echoes. Okay.
These are high cloud tops that we're looking at.
So if I switch off to the radar, you can see the difference. This is what the actual radar is forecast to look like. And there are still some isolated cells back up to the north and west. So, we'll see what SPC does in the morning with all of this.
Right. And, one thing that you might want to do, probably around midday or early afternoon, or before the fun begins, quote unquote, the fun, is look at the sky. Step outside and take a look. And if you see something equivalent to what we call, with a lot of alto cumulus, what some of the old mariners used to refer to as a mackerel sky, because it looks like the scales on a mackerel or the scales on a fish. If you see something that looks similar to that in the sky, that's a good indication that there are going to be some rather active cells of precipitation coming by in the next few hours. The more mackerel-y, that's not a real word, but the more that you see of those mackerel scales in the sky, the better your chances, I think, of seeing some really hefty, strong to possibly severe weather. I've always done that and looked at the sky. What time I looked, it was like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. I remember looking up and seeing that mackerel look and telling a friend of mine, I said, boy, we're really going to get kicked hard later. How could you tell? How could you tell? Sure enough, later in the day, we had tornado watches and severe weather. It works. And so if you want to become your own forecaster without looking at your computer, just step outside midday tomorrow and take a look and see what you see.
There's a lot to be said to make sure you look out the window.
Yeah.
Here's the loop. Those thunderstorms blowing up in Missouri, very, very clear. And by the way, we do have. Let me find it. What did I do?
I love the shadowing effect just before the Earth's terminator, the dark, the day-night line arrives.
Oh, I know.
You can see it's like a three-dimensional effect, and that really shows some of those cumulus clouds, or alto or towering cumulus, must go 40, 50, 60,000 feet up into the atmosphere.
We have 4 working as of 9:36. I wanted to go back to this because you saw how the clouds look. But here's the current surface map with what's going on back from Oklahoma northeast into Illinois. So we've got 1, 2, 3 working tornado watches. Tornado watch 211. That is up until 11 o'clock Eastern time. Tornado watch 212 is also up till midnight Eastern time, 11 Central, and the other tornado watch is also up till midnight. 213 is up till midnight, 11 Central time. Pretty impressive. It's a very narrow band, and the thunderstorms. I mean, SPC's pretty good. You get they get an idea. This matches up very well to where they had their risk areas today, and the storms are just kind of lined up inside those tornado watches. Those smaller boxes you see, the blue boxes, those are severe thunderstorm warnings, and the red small box in areas, those are tornado warnings, working tornado warnings. And if you go to spc.noaa.gov and click on mesoscale analysis, you can pull these maps up and play around with them. They have sectors for all of the U.S. So tomorrow, of course, we'll be looking at the Northeast. Joe, before we run out of time, which we eventually will, let's talk about Friday and the weekend, because my points on all of this, we've got basically three weather fronts coming through. One for tomorrow night, one Saturday night, and one Sunday night.
Right. And if we play our cards right, we'll just be asleep when most of the action takes place with those two other fronts, and you wake up on Saturday and Sunday and Monday, and you have nice dry days.
I think that's how it's going to play out. And Monday may actually turn out to be the best of the bunch, because there may not be any rain to speak of, not only for the daytime Monday, but for Monday night. But let's get there first. Friday could be like yesterday. Gusty winds. The gradient is even tighter today.
Right.
With this low that's going to deepen as it moves off the coast of Maine. So Friday could be much like yesterday was.
The only difference between yesterday and Friday, the temperatures. On
Yes.
Friday, if you remember, on Tuesday, 60s to near 70, but on Friday it looks like it'll be mid-70s within a degree or two of 75. For
Agreed.
everybody.
We're fine Friday night. I think the daytime Saturday. This is Saturday evening at 8 o'clock. If anything, the GFS is actually slower in bringing in showers and storms. Has them pinned much further north and west Saturday evening. So it might not be until midnight or before midnight or shortly after. Looks like they're all gone by daybreak.
And SPC, by the way, still is indicating, not in our area specifically, but just off to the west and north, that we may have possible severe activity.
Yes.
And that would be for day 4. So tomorrow we will move that to day 3, and we'll see how the outline is and whether or not we're in it or out of it. But they are indicating or suggesting that severe activity could be close by on Saturday.
This is the map up that's up there now. That's the front for Sunday night that comes through, and again probably after 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm thinking it'll be done by daybreak. You've got northerly isobars. Looks like a nice day for Memorial Day. No developing sunshine in the morning, mostly sunny in the afternoon, and at least a clear start to the night before the next warm front, cold front mess. And this time around, Joe, going into the middle of next week, I think it could actually get very warm to borderline hot here Tuesday and Wednesday.
Not only that, but also rather humid. I was looking at the GFSX, the extended outlook for next Wednesday, and they had dew point temperatures in the mid-60s. That's about as high as I've seen it go so far this particular late spring season. So it may not just be warm, it may be just downright oppressive by the middle of next week.
Well, we've got the GFS on Tuesday at 2 o'clock as an 85 print at New York City, an 88 print at Atlantic City, 90s in Virginia, upper 90s down in the Carolinas, and even up to 100 in parts of Georgia. And then we go to Wednesday, it's got the 90-degree. Wednesday might be our first 90-degree high. Maybe some places... Well, some places have already seen 90
Right.
in the last week or so.
Right.
So maybe Wednesday might be the first day where a lot of places in the eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England area see the 90-degree mark.
That's when people are going to start saying to themselves, maybe this will be the weekend I open the pool. I'm not going to make any more commentary about the obnoxiously large.
No, it is obnoxious and it is large. Okay, so let's get to we got a couple of minutes before we got to say goodbye. So let's go to the let's go back up to the chat and talk to everybody. Got a nice little crowd tonight. Hey, Jason Schaefer, I sent you a message because you and I think are working together Saturday. So message me back, okay? I sent it to you on Messenger. Do you have the screen? Johnny Quest wants to know, do you have the screen that shows the radar of the wind of the storms, like the Doppler shot? You know what? I can't pull. I don't know where it is offhand. Do you know?
No.
Yeah, I got to look around for that. So that I'll put it on my list of things to do tomorrow. And if I forget, just remind me. Okay, a wind velocity. I got to find it. I'm sure it's around somewhere. But remind me if I forget. I'll try to bring it up tomorrow evening when I do the live streams. Ruthless Go. Joplin just got tore up. More Oklahoma style. They have suffered enough. Are you saying they just got to the tornado that worked through this evening, Ruthless, or just making reference to the prior tornado? Because I haven't really seen too much in the way of headlines. Why don't we bring that up? Okay. I was trying to find a live cam.
I don't mean to have dead air. We're just
we're just looking. I don't see any breaking news on Google. So I mean, if you're other than tornado reported in the Joplin area, but that's it. Okay, so I don't know anything beyond what was on that that Google. Can I look at Oklahoma and their severe weather right now? Okay, so just really quick. I'm sorry, David, because
she was chatting with somebody in Joplin. They were in their shelter. So
okay, we do have some hefty cells in northeastern Oklahoma that's feeding into the stuff that's in Missouri. That's sort of training up to the northeast. So the areas in southwest Missouri are may catch a short break, and then there's another big cell. Might as well just pop it up for everybody to see.
And can you imagine living out there?
You can see it here.
Being in your shelter, it's some things that you just are not accustomed to in this part of the country that they are well aware of and well trained in other parts of the country.
Also, the character of the thunderstorms is a lot different. I believe is a lot different. They're much more ferocious.
Right. You may get
there or in Florida.
I'll bet you they get a lot of those thunderstorms that turn the sky green.
Yes.
Every once in a great while you'll have that here, but that's scary. That really
I've never forgotten when I worked in New Orleans back in the mid-1980s. We had thunderstorms that came in, and it was about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay, now you folks can see that curtain that's behind me. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's behind both of us.
Right.
That was the color of the sky. It was black.
Wow.
It got so dark that it was as if it was the middle of the night.
Right.
At 11 o'clock. Lightning and thunder like I have never seen, and in fact the TV station I was working at, WVUE, we took a lightning hit that shook the building, and the charge came in and fried all our weather equipment.
Oh God!
And this was at a time where you broke in for severe weather, but the coverage that we would do on TV in the mid 1980s compared to what it is now was really, I wouldn't even say it was in its infancy, because you didn't have the internet. So the whole approach, there was no social media at the time, so the whole approach was different. But I never have experienced a thunderstorm quite like that again. Certainly, I've never really seen anything remotely close to that here in our area.
The only thing I could make a comparison, and maybe we have a lot of people online who are well versed in looking back on records or whatever. In August, I think it was August 11th or 12th in 1992, there was a thunderstorm that hit at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was living in Levittown, Long Island back then. Now, I have seen a number of total eclipses of the sun, and when the shadow of the moon is coming in, as you just mentioned with the darkness,
right,
you could see this dark wave, this tidal wave of darkness heading towards you. With this particular thunderstorm, it was just like what you described. It came over, tremendous lightning, thunder, and everything. Got very dark. All the lights came on. It was like late evening. This is 5 o'clock in the afternoon in August. And the front page of Newsday the next day had a picture somebody had taken of this monster that came through, and the headline read 5 o'clock shadow.
Wow.
And at that time it was like Lilco. What are they now? They're not LIPA.
They're PSE&G.
PSE&G. They were Lilco back then. I think they recorded something like 50,000 power outages with that storm or whatever. So if anybody has access to some old-time records, it was August, I think it was the 11th or 12th in 1992, and that was about as frightening a thunderstorm as I've seen. Although there was one on Labor Day in, I think, 1996 or 7 that also caused mayhem. So these storms can be really incredible. We don't get them very often up here, but we're talking about Missouri and
Oklahoma, yeah.
It's more or less a defining factor of the spring and summer.
David Schwartz pointing out 68 tornadoes in the last 48 hours. I got to go to SPC site and look and see what I'm curious as to what the tornado count is over the last 2 weeks, because it's got to be a big number. Okay, real fast, because Joe and I have to go. Reaver, I know the GFS has been spinning up tropical systems. Get used to the fact that this is going to be doing this from here on in, folks. You're going to see weather models spin up systems in the long range. Be sure you are aware when they start popping up on various social media pages that the models are spinning up storms 10 days to 2 weeks out into the future. We don't take, we've got a general rule here, especially when it comes to tropical storms. When the models start showing them inside the 5-day time frame, that's when we start paying closer attention. And you got to have the right upper air pattern. And I was looking at it this afternoon in terms of what, now this is a time of year. You start to get to the beginning of the hurricane season. If something's going to develop, it's usually in the Northwest Caribbean. I didn't exactly feel like it was the most ideal look in the long range for it. So I would just ignore it. The models are going to, we're going to get to the point in the hurricane season, Joe, where they start spinning up Category 5 hurricanes. That's the Canadians. The Canadian model loves to do that.
Speaking of long range in the tropics, I believe tomorrow is the day when the National Hurricane Center issues their
forecast
for the upcoming summer season. So we may have tomorrow night in hand or on screen what they're thinking of. I think that they're talking about lower than normal amounts this year because of the El Nino.
It could be. Also, David Schwartz, precip with these storms. I think they're moving too quick to cause any big, rain problems. Wouldn't you agree for tomorrow?
Oh, they'll be moving at a good, 40, 50 miles an hour. There could be some localized flooding concerns in
heavy downpours,
drainage areas. But
it's not like this stuff is going to train and rain for hours and hours and hours.
Thank God for that.
All right, so we got to go, folks. All right, so tomorrow, for my Patreon members, I'll probably do a live stream for members only tomorrow morning, figure around 10 o'clock Eastern time, but I'll put up a post to alert you to the time. I'll be back tomorrow night with my regular YouTube show at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And then Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at about 9:20. So the 6 o'clock show, probably when the thunderstorms are going on. The 9:20 show,
Hopefully when everything is out of here.
Right, and we'll be doing the recap. Thanks for being here tonight, everybody. Oh, Dennis Cassius says good night.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. Good night. Hello and good night.
And good night, everybody.